that sentence. Everyone has to start from somewhere, and the place you choose to start will often end up determining where you conclude. And the question, in fact all the questions in our But What If series, are fed by a key concept: your worldview. The truth is, everyone has a worldview, whether you think so or not. It's how you view the world and the ideas you hold. A worldview is like a lens through which you view life. It's the underlying truth claims that you've built your life on, which impact and affect how you choose to live day by day. The decisions you make, the opinions you form, and the conclusions you draw are normally generated by your worldview, so they're a powerful and important thing. A worldview asks 4 basic questions about the reality we live in. Origin: where did I come from? What does it mean to be human? Meaning: is there a purpose to life? Is it all just random? Why am I here? Morality: how should I live? Is there an objective right and wrong? And destiny: where ultimately am I headed? And what happens when I die? Now this might sound a bit formulaic, but if you think about it, these questions matter hugely. And you probably have an answer to each of them, even if it's a bit vague. And so whether we realise it or not, we use our answers to these questions to decide how we're going to live and what we're going to value. One of the criticisms I often hear people make towards Christians, or those from other faiths, is that they've been brainwashed. They've just absorbed the beliefs of their parents and previous generations. Now there's an element of truth in that, because it's the easiest thing to stick with what you've grown up with. But surely that requires people not to think for themselves. And if we're going to be fair, the same claim should be levelled at anyone who believes the same thing as their parents. The issue isn't about whether your parents believe it, but whether or not it's true. Let me take football as an example, the British religion. Imagine this made-up scenario for a moment. I'm a massive Newcastle United fan. Why? Well, because I grew up in the northeast, and most people where I lived supported Newcastle. But more importantly, my dad supported them. He bought me their kit, taught me their chants, even got us a family season ticket so we never missed a game. He took me to my first one when I was 4, and I've been going ever since. But one time when I was 8, I made friends with a Mackem. He supported Sunderland AFC. He wanted me to come to a match with him, but my dad mocked me mercilessly, and I realised there was no point. Sunderland are rubbish anyway, and I hate them, so why waste my time? They're all stupid. That friendship didn't last, especially when Sunderland won the Premiership and Newcastle got relegated. But whatever, Sunderland is still rubbish. It's a fictional scenario, but do you see what I mean? A lot of our passions or ideas are actually passed down, but that doesn't make everything about them right. However, they do impact and shape how we view things. We need to be aware of them, especially within the concept of worldviews. There may be many contributing factors to why we've developed the worldview we have. Our parents, friends, work colleagues, those we admire, the prevailing worldview of the culture that we live in, the media, the movies we watch, the literature we read, the things we've experienced, or the way that we feel about things. With so many competing influences, the chances are we all have a slightly skewed worldview, and so we need to refocus, to retune, and work out whether what we believe is rational or not. Everyone has a worldview, but I'd argue that not all worldviews are equally valid. They might look good, but do they really work? The question is, what's your worldview, and does it stack up? Now, I'm an ice cream connoisseur. I love the stuff. But controversially, I'm also one of those odd people who really enjoys Neapolitan ice cream. I think the strawberry, vanilla, chocolate combo is awesome. But the thing with Neapolitan ice cream is that it's not Neapolitan ice cream if you only eat 1 or even 2 of the flavours. The only way you've eaten Neapolitan is by eating all 3 together. You wouldn't buy a tub just to eat the vanilla. Likewise, when it comes to a worldview, there are also three distinct tests that a good worldview has to pass. If it only passes one, or even two of these tests, it's not really a good or viable worldview. It's flawed and you shouldn't buy it. So these are the important flavours, if you like, to a strong worldview. And they all have fancy sounding names, which makes me sound more educated than I am. So a good worldview has to be, firstly, of logical consistency. That means it has to be consistent within itself. If it's just full of contradictions and holes that can't be explained, then it's flawed. So to say all religions are the same is logically inconsistent, as they don't all hold the same beliefs. For example, there cannot be only one God in Islam, and yet multiple gods of Hinduism. One could be right, but not both. Secondly, it must be of empirical adequacy. Does it correspond to reality? Is there any evidence that relates to the world around us, to the things that we can test and see? Does it make sense of the things that we know and experience? Does it fit the facts of the world that we live in? For example, a religion that follows a flying spaghetti monster wouldn't seem to fit that category. Thirdly, of experiential relevance. Is it livable? By which I mean, if you follow your worldview through, is it possible to live it out and thrive that way? Will it help you to live in a way that makes sense of the relationships and choices around you? Is it practical? And does it work in the world as we know it? So being a Jedi may sound like a fun box to tick on your census, but you'll probably stumble when you actually try and harness the power of the Force. These three flavours, these tests, are really important to ask ourselves when we come to question why we believe what we believe. If you're anything like me, perhaps you hadn't realised there were these logical tools to assess what you think. But because your worldview plays such a major part in your thinking, it's well worth taking the time to work this through. You may even be surprised that what you thought you believed isn't as consistent and strong as you'd imagined. Now, any normal person would probably be thinking by this point, I thought he was going to give me reasons to believe in a God, or why it even matters. Instead, he's gone all philosophical. And you're right to think that, I have. But I wanted to say from the start that unless you can acknowledge that you already come into this topic with prejudices or preconceived notions, then you'll not get a whole lot of what I'm going to say. Now, I'd love to create an opportunity for open and honest discussion. We can all learn from each other, whatever belief system we might currently hold. So let's be open-minded, follow the clues where they lead us, even if that takes us to an unexpected place. However, there can be two dangers as we come to ask these big questions about God, the universe, and our place within it all. The first is to develop an unhealthy fixation on unattainable certainty. By this I mean, there's virtually nothing that humans understand exhaustively. We can know a lot about some things, but we can't know everything about everything. I love movies, and I consider myself to be a bit of a movie buff. But the truth is, it wouldn't take long before you exposed the lack of total knowledge I have in certain genres, or in most areas. Most scientists would probably agree that they may know a reasonably comprehensive amount on their chosen specialist field, but not so much outside of that. So we have to hold our hands open and be honest. We don't know everything, and if we want 100% proof of anything, we're going to come up short. But do you really think that the meaning and purpose of life can only be discovered by those with PhDs in quantum physics? I don't think the world was designed that way. The second danger is the polar opposite, to swing the other way and develop an equally unhealthy skepticism that says, if I can't know everything, then I can't know anything. This is a defeatist approach. There's plenty we can know, and when we stack up all of the evidence, we can reach a conclusion that strongly points us in one direction. A husband could tell his wife that he loves her, and his words, actions and mannerisms, their history together, his spending habits, and the time that he gives her may all suggest that what he's saying is true. But at the end of the day, the wife can never prove it 100%. She could keep pursuing that certainty relentlessly, always wanting to know for sure, and in the process find no joy in their relationship. Or she could end the marriage for fear that she may be wrong. If she can't be absolutely, completely, 100% sure he loves her, what's the point in being married? But to my mind, the sensible, rational response would be that she knows enough, understands the signs and evidences of his love, and acts accordingly, choosing to believe her husband's love and reciprocate. If God exists, and he's the God who created the universe, then it follows that he wouldn't be able to prove that existence in the same way that we could with an earthly physical object. Rather, we have to find, as Tim Keller says, the clues that he's written into the universe, including into us. That is why, if God exists, we would expect to find that he appeals to our rational faculties. If we were made in his image, as rational personal beings, there should be some resonance between his mind and ours. With that in mind, how can we really know if there's anybody out there? Well, we'll come to that soon, but if you have the opportunity, why not take some time now to share with other people about your worldview? How would you answer the following questions?